Okay, so thanks for joining me today. Trump has been talking about doing mass deportations. It's something that he's promised to do. How could people be prepared for this, people who may be threatened by these mass deportations?
The most important thing people can do is to learn their rights and to know their rights. And these are rights that are protected by the Constitution as well as by our immigration laws. And the ACLU of Northern California, on our website, we work through and provide information about the range of rights that every person has when they're confronted by an ICE officer or Border Patrol agent.
Okay. So, can you briefly go through those rights really quick that are like in the Constitution?
Yeah, so when you're faced with any action by law enforcement in the United States, there are some fundamental rights. For example, an ICE officer cannot come into your home without a warrant signed by a judge. You also have the right to remain silent or to ask for an attorney. These are all really fundamental rights that all of us have under the Constitution of the United States, and they apply also in the situation where you're confronted by an ICE or a Border Patrol agent. There's also rights in the immigration and deportation process as well, the right to due process, to a hearing. And we really encourage people to learn those rights, and you can find all kinds of resources to understand what those rights are.
Yeah, so we're in California right now. What kinds of risk do you think mass deportations could have on the state economically or socially?
So mass deportation is, a term for when the government is trying to deport large numbers of people. And in systems of mass deportation, it is very probable that there would be violations of people's due process rights, that there would be racial discrimination. And these things affect the rights both of the immigrant who's being targeted, but also can affect the rights of other citizens and other persons who are affected by these enforcement actions. So when the government abuses its authority, when the government violates due process, when the government racially discriminates, these affect every one of us, both the person who's the target of that enforcement, as well as other citizens and non-citizens as well. But the effect goes farther. It can really spark fear in our communities. It can lead people to not access services that they're entitled to, that they should continue to use. It can also have a real detrimental effect on our economy, given that immigrants are a vital part of the workforce, as well as our community.
Okay. And what can local governments do if they don't want to comply with the federal mandate? Is there any rights that California could utilize if they don't stand with it? Or do you know anything about, yeah, like how different counties could operate?
Under a variety of existing California law, there are limits to the ways that our local police, our sheriffs, or school districts can cooperate in immigration enforcement. So Californians should continue to access our public services and our public benefits, our public schools, because there are protections in place that limit the way in which local government in California can cooperate with immigration enforcement of the federal government.
Been hearing that in San Francisco, that's where some of the mass deportations could be affected. Do you have any insight on if San Francisco plans to comply with mass deportations in the future?
So the federal government has power to uh, begin deportation proceedings against an individual, but local government under our Constitution cannot be forced into the system of federal immigration enforcement beyond certain limits. That's why it's really important for every person to know your rights under both your local and state laws, as well as federal law. We certainly are prepared, and communities are prepared for unlawful deportation, detentions throughout Northern California, whether in the San Francisco Bay Area or in the Central Valley. We're prepared as are many community partner organizations.
Okay. And to just prepare people who may be searched by ICE or questioned by them, how does ICE usually approach an individual? How do they find individuals who they believe are illegal immigrants? And then how do they like find out if they're actually illegal? Do they ask for your documentation then and there? And do you have to like pull it out, or can you just say like, I'm not doing this right now?
Yeah. Under the federal laws related to immigration, there are things that immigration officers can ask you, but you also have certain rights. And the ACLU of Northern California website provides that information to you about what those rights are. What is happening when the ICE officer approaches you at your home? To enter your home, they would need a warrant. ICE officers may also do workplace enforcements, and there are certain rules and limits for what they can do in a workplace. And then there's out on the street or in the community. At the bottom end of it, you have the rights under the Constitution to equal protection under the law and to due process. That means that you cannot be racially targeted because of the color of your skin. It also means that you have certain rights to privacy in your home, as well as to due process if the immigration proceedings start. It's a lot of information, and I really encourage people to take the time to learn what these rights are in advance and to prepare. And also remember, this affects not just the immigrant who is the target of the enforcement, but their family and their community. And a lot of people can be detained and affected who aren't even the immigrant in the target. And so we'll really want to encourage everyone to know these rights because they affect us all, and we all have to speak up to make sure that there's fairness and due process for every person as promised by our Constitution.
So from your experience working on this, have you seen people who have been racially targeted because of the way they look through profiling?
Yeah, there is a long history, and it happens right now, where as a part of immigration enforcement, people are targeted because of their race, because of what they look like, because of their fluency with English. So it's really vital that we all learn our rights and make sure that if you get targeted, if you get stopped, call a community-based organization or call the ACLU Northern California. We need to know when these things are happening so we can defend the rights of every person, citizen and non-citizen alike.
Yeah, that's really good information. So for people who may be getting targeted, I mean, with this like rhetoric, of this like illegal alien like deportation, for people who are being discriminated against, maybe at work or at school, what can the ACLU do to help?
So the first thing that we do is we provide information about your rights to every person, and that's available on our website, whether it's with regard to law enforcement or immigration or at schools. Really, the first thing we can do is to make sure people learn their rights. As far as when immigration proceedings start, we really encourage people to have an immigration lawyer, find one of the local nonprofits that provide immigrant legal services, be in contact with them in advance, know who they are. And then what the ACLU does is we challenge the large scale actions of the federal or state or local governments. And so we will be looking very carefully at every executive order of the Trump administration. And where those violate rights, we will go to court. Where they need attention and vigorous public education, we will make sure that we're out there educating the public about the risks and harms of any policies that violate people's rights. So these are the things that every person can be a part of to know your rights, be in contact with local community organizations, and be part of speaking out against any policies that betray our constitutional rights or the laws of this country that defend the rights of immigrants.
Okay, I really appreciate all your insight on that. That's answered a lot of my questions. Is there anything else on this topic that you'd like to add?
The United States Constitution and the laws of this country, as well as the state of California, provide a lot of fundamental rights for immigrants, for all of us. And this is a time where every one of us needs to be vigilant to defend the rights of immigrants. It's going to affect every person who gets pulled into these immigration enforcements, raids, and the like. And we need to protect the rights of everyone in our community in the face of these potential policies.
Very well put. Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate your time.